The Georgia sun, heavy and wet as a soaked blanket, pressed down on the I-75 rest stop just outside of Macon. The air hummed with the relentless chorus of cicadas and the idling diesel engines of 18-wheelers. Among them, two unremarkable refrigerated trucks were parked side by side. Their generators rattling, their cargo holds sealed tight against the oppressive heat. Inside, stacked in neat, plastic clamshells, were thousands of pounds of plump, dark blackberries, each bead glistening with a dewy sheen of condensation. To any passing trucker or weary family on a road trip, it was just another shipment of fruit, making its way from some farm to the shelves of grocery stores. But the chill in those holds, meant to preserve the delicate berries, was guarding a far darker, more lethal harvest. This story doesn't begin in Georgia, but in the shadowy networks that spiderweb across borders. It begins with a man we'll call Javier, though that wasn't the name on his faded birth certificate. Javier, a former felon who'd done his time for interstate trafficking, had promised his sister Maria he was out. He'd sworn on their mother's grave, the woman who worked at cleaning jobs until her knees gave out, that he was done. He was going to drive legit, haul produce, save up, and help get Maria's boy, Luis, through community college. For a while, he meant it. The smell of the cab, the open road, the clean exhaustion of an honest day's work, it felt like redemption. But the past has a gravity, a pull that's hard to escape. An old associate, a man with a quiet voice and empty eyes, found him. The offer wasn't framed as a return to crime, it was framed as a one-time, can't-miss favor, a simple drive. A premium bonus. Enough money to cover Luis's tuition in one shot. No more debt, no more worry for Maria. Javier looked at his sister's tired face, at the second-hand textbooks Luis pored over at their kitchen table, and felt the walls of his good intentions closen. The devil, as they say, doesn't always come with a pitchfork. Sometimes he comes with a solution to all your problems. Meanwhile, in a nondescript federal building hundreds of miles away, Special Agent Carla Mitchell was staring at a mosaic of data on a screen. For months, her multi-agency task force had been tracking a sophisticated syndicate moving staggering volumes of methamphetamine from superlabs to cities and towns across the heartland. The drugs were moving, but the how was a ghost. They'd watched money. They'd watched known players, but the pipeline itself remained invisible. Then, a sliver of intelligence, paid for by a scared low-level player looking at a decade in prison, they were using the cold chain. The fruit. That's all they had. The cold chain. The unbroken refrigerated journey that keeps perishables fresh. It was genius. Who would poke through pallets of quickly rotting produce? The scent of ripe fruit would mask any chemical odor. The urgency of delivery would discourage lengthy inspections. Back at the Macon rest stop, Javier sat in his cab, a cold sweat tracing his spine despite the AC. He'd made the handoff in a dead-of-night warehouse outside Laredo, Texas. He'd watched as men in forklifts unloaded the real blackberries, then carefully removed false walls within the refrigerated trailers. Into hidden compartments, they slid vacuum-sealed bricks, over 1,600 pounds of them, each one containing a pure, devastating form of crystal meth. Then, the real berries were loaded back in front. A wall of innocent fruit hiding a wall of poison. The sheer scale of it terrified him. This wasn't a favor, this was a cataclysm on wheels. As he sat there, a white SUV and a plain black sedan pulled quietly into the rest stop, parking at a distance. Agent Mitchell was in the sedan. They tracked him, not through a dramatic tale, but through patterns, fuel stops, route deviations, the cold chain logistics. They waited. They watched. This was the moment. Not just to grab a driver, but to let him make the next call, to potentially lead them deeper. Javier's phone rang. It was the man with the empty eyes. "You're behind schedule. The receiver in Atlanta is waiting. The berries are getting soft." The voice was calm, lethal. Javier's eyes drifted to a family at a picnic table nearby. A little girl in pigtails was trying to feed a scrap of bread to a brave sparrow. He thought of Luis at that age, all white eyes and boundless hope. He thought of the thousands of lives, thousands of families, that would be shattered by the cargo in his hold. The tuition money turned to ash in his mind. This wasn't a way out for his family. It was a way in for despair into countless others. He made a choice. He opened his door and stepped out into the blinding Georgia sun. He didn't run. He walked slowly, deliberately, towards the rest stop's convenience store. As he passed the black sedan, he made eye contact with Agent Mitchell. He gave an almost imperceptible nod towards his trucks, then walked inside. That was the signal. It all happened with a surreal quiet. Agents materialized, not with screaming sirens, but with a focused, urgent purpose. The refrigerated units were unsealed. The sweet, tangy smell of blackberries poured out into the hot air. Agents in gloves began carefully moving the clamshells, pallet by pallet, revealing the intricate false wall. Then, they began removing the bricks. Pile after pile of them, stacked on the asphalt like toxic, shimmering Legos. Nearly 1,600 pounds. A street value in the tens of millions. A river of ruin, stopped in its tracks. Javier was arrested, read his rights, led to a car. But as he was placed in the back seat, Agent Mitchell approached. She didn't say much. Just, the receiver in Atlanta is next. Your cooperation matters. He nodded again, his eyes filled with a storm of shame, relief, and a shattered, complicated hope. The news would report it as a massive drug bust, a major seizure. A crackdown on distribution networks, and it was a vital victory in a relentless, invisible war. But for Agent Mitchell, it was a day of preventing a flood of poison. And for Javier, it was the day he finally stopped running, not from the law, but from the man he knew he had to be. The blackberries would rot, the meth would be incinerated, but the human cost and the fragile, costly redemption would linger long after the headlines faded. The real story wasn't in the weight of the seizure but in the weight of the choice made in a dusty rest stop under a punishing sun, where the scent of fruit forever masked the smell of fear and where a man for the sake of a nephew he loved and a nation he'd wronged decided to break the chain.